Greetings, everyone. I hope you're doing well. Today, we're going to talk about building products and specifically the concept of a minimum viable offering. So, where does this fit within the overall marketing strategy? As you know, the first thing that we do is we look at the overall situation of the market. Our company itself, our values, who our competitors are, the customers that we have, and the collaborators, the partners who we work with, who are available to us, and the climate and the context of the environment in which we are in, the economy, any compliance factors. And then once we have that, we go through the process of marketing strategy, which is really segmentation, targeting, and positioning. Finding those groups of people, prioritizing them, and demonstrating to that target audience who or what our unique value is. So finally, not until we do all those things do we think about the marketing mix, which is, of course, what we all know is the 7 Ps. And today we're going to talk about product offerings. And in the case of those of us who are thinking about being entrepreneurs, minimum viable offering. So let's get started. The first thing that I want to remind everyone about is that when we look at developing, creating ideas, thinking about products and services to build or bring to market, we need to always start with the consumer in mind and what their unique needs and wants and benefits are. We start with their problems and we see what we can do to solve them. And then finally, we try to determine, is there a demand for these needs or not? So when you want you to think about the value that your product offering has to a consumer, value is defined as the ratio of perceived benefits compared to the perceived costs. So you're looking at a cost and benefit analysis that consumer goes through in their mind to determine whether or not you are providing value to solve their problems. And a value proposition, your unique position or your unique reason why the consumer would choose your product or service versus another, is that whole bundle of value that we provide to them. Not just the widget or the service, is what are all of those ancillary things or the total product concept that provides value to the customer. So as you know, in terms of bringing a product offering to market, people buy things to solve their needs. They don't just buy a product to buy a product. So when you are looking at solving needs, you want to look holistically at their needs, their wants, their desires, and everything around that. So let's take a step and talk about what exactly is an offering. So if you recall back when you were in your marketing principles days or learning about the marketing mix and we talked about the types of products and services, consumer goods and services are something that is used by an end user, a consumer, a person, an individual, or a family, or a group of people. Now, there's also business-to-business goods and services that you can consider, and the difference is the buyer is a different decision maker generally than the user of the products. So business-to-business goods and services can get a little bit more complicated when it comes to the sales process. We also have not-for-profit marketing, and we have ideas, places, people. All of these things can be developed as an offering. So today we're going to talk about what do you do and what do you need to think about in terms of building a minimum viable product. So let's have a little refresher here. It may have been a while since you've thought about the components of a product. Now there's features and there's benefits. So it doesn't matter what product you have. The features are what the item has or what it is. Whereas the benefit or the value of that product is what is the outcome of the feature that you build into the product. How does it help me? What does it do for me? So we need to think in regards to not just the makeup of the product, but what is that value or benefit that we're building for that end user. So features are those components that make up the product. So let's look at an umbrella, for example. So if you were going to have an umbrella, the umbrella could have a stick of some sort or a handle. It could be wooden, it could be aluminum. All of those things are features. You're going to have the material that covers the sun or shade, and the material could be cold material, warm material, sun blocking material, decorative. All of those things are features as a part of the umbrella. Now you have your umbrella, and there is a reason why you've chosen to purchase an umbrella, right? And that reason is to solve your problem, whatever that is. It could be you need to stay out of the sun so you don't get skin cancer or get sunburn. It could be to cool yourself from the wind, the hot wind, or sitting by the pool. Or it could be protecting yourself from the rain. So you can see here that there's a distinct difference between the actual features of the product and what the product does for you and how it solves your problems, which is the benefit. So when you're thinking about a total product offering, you need to look at both of those in the value that it provides. So let's take an example here of a real world product. So we all have cell phones, right? Mobile phones, smartphones, whatever you want to call them. And each of them, whether you're an Apple user, a Droid user, a Google user, you have selected a phone. And the phone has features to it. So I want you to take a minute to think about what are the features, remember those tangible pieces, that go into a phone. It might be a camera. It could be the aluminum or whatever, the titanium, whatever the outer shell is made of. You've got, and maybe they're various colors. You have the screen, right? And the device, the speaker, so you can speak and listen. So these are all of the functions, the features that you are going to have within the product that you're developing. Now what you have to then flip it over and think of, well, what is the benefit of having a camera on your phone? Is it to share memories or store memories? Is it for security reasons so you can videotape walking, out to your car? What is the benefit of having different colors or options for your phone? Does a different color make you happy? What is the benefit of having a special glass? It's shatterproof, or maybe you can use it under the water when you're swimming. So you can see the difference. The feature really is all of those components that are going to cost you something, right, to make. Whereas the value of that product is, what are the things that are helping me? Well, how do those features help me go about my day or solve my problems? So think about that as it relates to your own products or services that you're ideating. Now, again, remember, the reason I'm talking about features and benefits is I want you to think of that total ratio of benefits and costs. Think of a smartphone. A smartphone is a piece of equipment, but it not only is just an equipment to it for us, it's our GPS to get around. Every single app that you have, it's the alarm to wake you up in the morning. Everything that goes into the functionality, the software embedded within that phone has the overall perceived benefit to your product itself. So let's talk about minimum viable offering. Now, what a minimum viable offering is, when you're an entrepreneur, you likely don't have the time, the resources, or the ability to wait to have the perfect product. You will run out of time, somebody else will beat you to market, you may run out of money, or you don't have enough people to get it done. So our goal is developing a prototype of the smallest number of benefits and features and build something where a person is willing to purchase that. Because we can always iterate on that prototype. So creating a minimum viable offering instead of building something that is the dream product in the end is that it allows us to get feedback from actual users and consumers to test our assumptions before we invest too much money in building something. So the purpose of the minimum viable offering is to minimize our overall risk and keeping the project investment small at the front end so we can discover what's great, what works, and what doesn't. So what does this mean? So you need to have a minimum and a viable, and the product is in the middle there of the Venn diagram. If you have too few benefits or features, it's a crappy product and no one's going to buy it. So you need to have enough of those that it's of value to somebody to make a purchase, but you also have to have it viable where the product can be built and financed better, to what you have available to you. Another way to think about this is that a minimum viable product is designed to change the world. You're not looking to copy what someone else has done. And you're not looking to you're not looking at building something to make a profit. You want to do something that's so unique and valuable that it's going to change a person's life or world. It's supposed to solve a problem, as we mentioned. It's not supposed to design to impress people out of the gate. You're solving a problem. Think of Airbnb. Airbnb was simply an idea of an air mattress in somebody's living room to solve a problem of somebody needing a place to stay while they travel. Today, you can have the luxury Airbnb and get all of the features and functions and value, but that's not where they started. So you want to also build a minimum viable product to get the user feedback along the way instead of building something as a whole and then getting feedback. At that point in time, you may have wasted time, money, energy for something somebody won't even care about. So you need to think a little bit smaller than maybe the Taj Mahal. All right, so let's look at, this is a great little image I got off of the internet. And how do you build a minimum viable product? It's not, if you think about building a vehicle like a car, maybe the traditional product management process would be you're going to get a wheel because you need, it makes something move from here to there. Then you purchase an axle, and then you build the body of the car, and then you make the engine of the car and you go. So that would be a traditional product management process. You already have the vehicle in mind, and you're going to build it till you get there. Whereas a minimum viable product is, how do I solve the problem of transportation? How do I get from here to there? So perhaps in solving the problem of transportation, you start off with a skateboard. You're not just going to build the wheel and then the axle. You're going to build something to get them from here to there. Then you're going to improve on it, get some feedback from consumers. Well, I need a little bit of balance, so you're going to put a handlebar on it. Well, it would be more efficient if I could, pedal and have some bigger wheels and more stability and get there faster, and then put an engine in that, and then finally, build a car. So you can see the difference between having that end vision of what it is and then maybe creating something smaller that is viable to solve that actual problem. So there's this great matrix called the minimum viable product matrix. And what we need to do is we have two axes. One is features. Remember the features and the value. You have few features and you have many features. Then you have whether it's viable or not viable. So what I like to do is to have you think about all of those features that you're thinking about in building your product or service, and put those features in one of these 4 quadrants. So if you have a few features that are viable and you can bring it to market right away up in the upper left-hand quadrant, that's a minimum viable product. This is where you want to be. If you build too many features and to make it viable is probably going to take a longer time. You're going to have more feedback. It's a longer investment, and this is not a great place to be. And then if you have too few features and it doesn't work, you're not going to have any buyers. And if you have too many features and you spend all of this time and energy and research and development and putting your prototypes together and it has too many features, it's not viable, it's a waste of money. So try to think about what is that minimum viable offering you can create, the fewest number of features, and get something viable to solve that consumer's problem. So that said, you are going to work on an activity that is taking the minimum viable product and thinking of all of the features that you can imagine going into your product. So you're going to go into Canvas, you're going to download this activity, and you're going to list out all of those features. Everything that you would ever dream of putting in your product or service. But I also want you to think about what are those value items. Remember, the value of the smartphone isn't necessarily the camera. The value could be sharing memories, having security. All of those apps that go in there provide unique value. So what are the features that you want in your product idea? Then I want you to go through and determine how viable is it to have this at the time you go to market? Is it really hard to get there, or is it relatively easy? So each feature, you're going to go through that thought process. And then you're also going to look at it in terms of investment. How much will it cost you to put this particular feature in the product? Does it have to go out with the first iteration of your product or not? So this is the activity that I want you to do, and make sure that each of your team members do this separately, come together, and then determine what you think your minimum viable offering should be. So to wrap this up, a minimum viable offering is an offer that provides the smallest number of benefits necessary to make a sale. In other words, it's a prototype that people are willing to purchase, because you can always iterate and make it better based on what you've learned from the consumer.